Okay, hey everyone. This is our last video. It's all about listening and conflict in our relationship. So I guess we'll start out with just kind of listening, how listening goes in our relationship. Overall, sorry, I feel like this is really
sensitive.
whatever. Overall, I would say that we're both pretty good listeners. You know, we both listen to each other really well. Sometimes we do have distractions, like when one of us is on the computer or if we're looking at our phones. And but we try to be like aware of that and recognize it and put it away when the other person is talking to us. I feel like we do better. We do good on that. But our big thing is we always strive to listen to understand what the other person is saying, not to reply. So we work on that. Sometimes we're not always good because we get caught up in the conversation and we want to like put our 2 cents in. You do it too. He does that. And I just feel like I look. So yeah, so that's our listening. So for our conflict, I kind of looked in the book again with kind of what we learned about conflict to talk about this video. And so it talks about the different levels of conflict. And so I would say in our relationship that we are at a level 3, which is problems to solve. So that means like we recognize that we have problems and then we talk about them and we try to solve them. Very rarely do we escalate to a level 4, which would be argument. And that's when like kind of like just negativity comes into the conflict with where you're like criticizing each other or putting blame on each other and stuff like that. And we really try very, very hard not to be like that. And
I can't think of a time where we've done it to each other together.
yeah, we try hard not to. That if we do bring up maybe somebody's fault, that we do it in like a loving way and not in a blaming them, criticizing them.
And we do a good job, I think, of keeping it one-sided, to where if it comes out, it's not just retaliate with the worst thing that you can against the other person. It's, okay, well, this is how I feel about this particular subject. It's not, well, remember that one time I was down at the creek and you said this and you did this, and
right.
It's not like that.
Yeah, we try, just because, like, well, I came from a very high conflict home, and I don't like the way my family handles conflict. And so I want better for my family of creation, and so that's kind of why. And then I guess for you, I don't really talk about conflict a whole lot in your family, but is there high conflict in your?
There was.
Because your mom can be a little.
Oh, yeah. Oof. But there was a lot of conflict growing up.
Yeah.
But when I was 17 and became active in the church, it was a witch hunt to find contention. For the most part, we burned it out.
But
at the
that
root.
was only for a little bit.
No.
Or it's always been like that since?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So probably our weaknesses though when it comes to conflict. Like I know for me, sometimes I bring up the issues at really bad timing, and then like I'll like act like frantic about them, or like I don't know how to describe
Well, it's like she feels like she doesn't have control over the situation, so then she tries to grasp all the control that she can as quickly as possible.
And so it's kind of like we have to drop everything and solve this, when really it's probably not that important. I'm sorry, it's okay. Stop it, Ben. Calm down. Sorry, our dog's being.
My mom can be a little bit like that sometimes, so it's difficult, and I get kind of flooded sometimes because as she tries to grab control, sometimes it feels like she's shutting me out. So instead of getting angry, I just kind of stop talking. and just kind of. And then I'm thinking about what she's saying. I'm thinking about what's going on, but I
But
don't.
he's not saying anything,
And-
so
and-
it makes me more stressed out and frantic because I don't know what he's thinking, and
but-
I think he's just ignoring me.
Yeah, and most of the time I feel that if she's gotten to that point, anything I'm saying anyways is just going out the window. So, which it isn't.
Which it isn't. But
Which it isn't. Which, I mean, it was in my personal relationship with other members of my family. And that's one thing that we're trying to resolve is not projecting those ideas of other conflicts we've had on each other, as opposed to, just letting them happen and then bringing all that baggage into another relationship, which is just detrimental for everybody
Right.
involved.
And usually we can break, like, that's how our conflict will start out, with our weaknesses kind of showing like that, but then, like, we break the tension by, like, making a joke, or somehow we kind of laugh, and then it's like, okay, so it's like, then we both, like, say how we're feeling about the situation, and then we, like, figure out how to solve it. Kind of a classic example that happened, like, probably, like, a month ago, was a little argument about, is this okay? Do you see? Okay, just want to make sure I didn't go over this with you. Not argument, but just disagreement.
There we go.
About, we call it guy time, because he has a friend who, he does martial arts with, who he's kind of going through a separation with his wife, and it's a little depressed. Like, we'll have him over for dinner and stuff like that, but
He's a lot depressed.
he's a lot depressed. Yeah, he's just going through a really hard time and just kind of needs some, like, support. And him and Shaken are really alike. Like, they could be like twins. Like,
Night and day if it weren't for the church.
yeah,
Like,
that's the
not night and
biggest
day,
difference. But
Salt and pepper.
that's the biggest difference, is just that he's not a member of the church. And so he was, like, talking about going over and spending time, and, like, I already, between him, like, doing work, school, martial arts, like, I already feel like we don't get a whole lot of time with him being home, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't want you going over there spending time with him when you can be home. Like, why can't he come here? Stuff like that. And so we were kind of going back and forth about, like, how to handle this situation. And so what we kind of ended up doing was, me and him, we went on a date. We spent some time together. And then I was happy because I got my hubby time. So then I didn't care if he went and spent some time with his friend.
See, and again, I'm not used to spending a whole lot of time all the time with somebody. Like, I was home a lot growing up a lot. So I learned how to deal with being alone, and so then I would only spend certain small amounts of, like, pockets of time with other people. But we resolved that really easily. Like, I went over there that one night, and it hasn't been an issue since.
right.
I realized one day when I went to the store with him, because he came over for dinner, I was getting all giddy because I realized I hadn't hung out with just dudes in a long time. I mean, it had been months.
Yeah, except you go to Wing Chun 2 nights a week.
Yeah, but that's not just hanging out. I mean,
See, he says it's different, but to me, in my mind, I feel like it's the same. But really, what we figured out from that conflict was that he just needed to spend time with me first, and I felt like I got my time, and then I was at the point where I didn't care.
yeah, and
What
let's
he
face
did.
it. I mean, she's so awesome. Whenever she compromises too in our conflict, as soon as I would say for both of us, as soon as one starts compromising, we realize that we're working as a team, and then suddenly it's not
Really an issue.
it becomes a non-issue, because then it's just like, oh, okay, well, it's not me not wanting to be with her, and it's not, her forcing me to have a conversation with her about this because she's being controlling or mean.
Right.
It just is, it's things that need to work out in the relationship. Say hi, Ben. Things that we use to strengthen our relationship as opposed to letting it cause problems or contention.
Right.
And we don't let it linger.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
big thing.
and something I learned about in one of my classes was consensus versus compromise. This is something that I feel like, strive to do. And that's when instead of like compromising where both people kind of feel like they're losing out on what they really want, and the solution to like find a win, basically consensus is when
It's
you
win-win-win.
yeah basically it's both, because you both have come together and you just kept talking about the issue until everybody was happy, and it wasn't that like one person had to kind of lose out on something and the other person maybe had to like lose out on something for there to be a compromise, but instead it's just that you keep talking about the issue until both parties are satisfied, which is kind of like what we did with our guy time conflict, where I just wanted to spend some time with him, so we went, Ben, no. So we went and had a date, and he wanted to spend some time with his friend, and so once I got the date, I was happy, and then he could go spend time with his friend, and he was happy, and like everybody was happy. So it wasn't necessarily a compromise; it was a consensus. So I just really like that little bit about
And I
conflict.
think that's what we did last night.
Yeah.
Was we just came to a consensus and then we just
And
moved
then
forward.
yeah, that's
Just
done.
simple.
We don't keep rehashing it.
Yeah, and it's not worth it.
So for our questions for tonight, first one is, what are some ways that we break the tension when we are having a disagreement?
I make a joke.
That's typically what it is. He also, sometimes when he gets flooded, he'll just start laughing too. Like if he starts feeling overwhelmed with emotions, he'll just laugh at me. It's not at me, but it feels like it's at me. But sometimes that helps break, because I now understand what he's doing. It helps break the tension, because it's like, okay, like he's not laughing at me. He's just trying to not feel so overwhelmed.
Yeah. Humor's my shield.
Yeah. So that's typically what we do to break the tension. Next question for tonight, we only have two, is what are some ways we personally try to do to be better listeners?
I shut my mouth.
Sometimes he talks a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's the gist of it. Sometimes I listen better when I'm not looking at her, because sometimes if I'm looking at her, I start focusing on what I'm protruding as my self-image, showing that, hey, I'm doing all these things, like making eye contact, I have my arms in, like I'm showing all these things. So then I start thinking about my body language and how it reflects how I'm listening to her, and then suddenly I might as well be in Vietnam, because I'm just gone out of the conversation, and so I'll have to kind of click back in and focus on what she's saying and not what I'm doing.
Right.
What about for you?
I like to paraphrase back, so I like to repeat back what he said to me, make sure that I'm understanding correctly and that I'm not getting confused or misinterpreted. And it also helps me remember the conversation later when I say it back. So that's what I like to do. So that's all we have for tonight, and this is our last episode, so thanks everyone for watching, for this to be my 10-hour project. Really enjoyed doing something with my husband like this. So I can't wait to see all y'all's projects, and I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!